In contrast to the last liquid amber, they had the included leaders, the 2 codominant leaders. This is a single leader liquid amber, same type of tree, a whole lot better structure. And the things we look for is the branches. The wider, more U-shape, or even these wide angle attachments are much better than the steep, narrow attachments. And you can see on this one here, you can see the nice swelling around the base of this branch. That's that branch collar I was talking about earlier, how that branch is well attached. The other thing too is we like to see branches less than 1/3 the size of the trunk to be, so they're not competing, and they're much stronger structured that way. It's nice having spaced branches where they alternate and aren't competing for the same area as well. So this is a much nicer structured tree. Branches aren't real long. There's been a little bit of crown reduction on them to keep them light in, but they're well tapered. They go from small to big down at the trunk, so they're well structured branches. Some pruning and some misconceptions that people often have. This is a mulberry tree, and a lot of people like to what they call pollarding of them. And pollarding is actually a cultural practice where you cut back the new growth every year to a certain point, and at that point where you cut it back every year, it creates this big ball, which is called meristematic tissue. It's bud producing tissue, and it's full of energy, and the tree sprouts back really fast and creates a whole bunch of shoots the following year. Now this practice needs to start when the tree is really young, like second or third year. And what you do is, as soon as you put in the ground, you tip the growth, little tiny branches. They grow out, you tip those branches, they grow out until you get the shape of the tree you want and the size of the tree you want. And then every year from there back, you prune those shoots back to their collars, their branch collars, their attachments at the ball. You don't cut into the ball at all. And that way you're not injuring that meristematic ball, and it will create a lot of shoots the following year. Now on this particular tree, someone did not do it properly. You can see here where there's big, heavy, flat cuts, and that's basically a topping cut. And again, topping is really bad on trees. It creates these rapidly growing shoots that grow, 4 or 5 times faster than the normal growth, and they're attached weakly around where the topping cut was made. And then you'll get decay pathogens in that big cut. They rot that out, and you got these really long shoots that are poorly attached around the edge of decay, and you're just looking for disaster. So a lot of people take this shortcut. They think they're pollarding, and instead of cutting each little branch back to its collar, they just lop off the whole thing, the whole knuckle, and leave a big stub. And it makes the job a lot faster, it cuts corners, but it mutilates the tree. It not only hurts the tree health-wise, but it hurts the tree structurally-wise. So proper pollarding needs to start when a tree is really young. It needs to be small cuts for several years in a row until you get your scaffold, and then every single year you come in and you prune those back. So you're only cutting 1 year's growth every time you prune. That 1 year's growth will heal over quickly, it won't decay, and you'll have a nice structural tree, you have a nice looking tree, and it's still cultural pruning. It's not arboriculture pruning, it's still cultural pruning. And what I mean by cultural is, back in England, they found out that when they locked trees back, they created this really fast growth, real straight growth branches, and they used the branches to make like wicker baskets and weaving and stuff like that. So it was more of a crop pruning than it was pruning to help the tree. It was to create a crop. So it can be done if it's done right, and it's not that bad for the tree, and pollarding is acceptable on certain trees. Mulberries it is acceptable on, but not like this. This is just topping. This is just tree mutilation. It creates a poor structured tree and a lot of competing branches. Okay, I talked about that other mulberry that was cut back improperly, and I just want to give you an idea of what a pollard looks like. This is not perfect. There's been some mistakes along the way by other companies and so forth. Ideally, these big knobs would be perfectly rounded with no scars on them at all. But just to give you an idea how much growth this put on, you can see these things are putting on 10 feet of shoot growth in one season. A healthy pollard will store all that energy in that meristematic ball at the end of those big knobs, and that you can cut those shoots back to their attachment without cutting into that knob at all, and you'll store all that energy inside there, and the next spring it just forces out that rapid growing shoot growth. And it's an acceptable practice if it's done right.